Your mind has been programmed to believe things that just aren't true. So in this video, we are going to share with you 6 ideas to help you reprogram your mind with regards to your finances. My name is Carmen.
And I'm Darius. And our programming starts in the school system. And that school system was basically created back during the Industrial Revolution when we were programmed to work in factories. Now, there's some things that has changed since then that we need to really reconsider.
A lot's changed.
Now, when it comes to our income, if we think about how the average multimillionaire thinks versus the way the average person thinks, it's a little different. Mm-hmm. Things don't add up the same way. That's why we see such a big gap in our income versus other successful people. Well, the first thing is just the money equation. If the average U.S. person earns $27.71 an hour and he works 40 hours a week, it'll take him 17 years to become a millionaire. Now, that doesn't take into consideration taxes or anything else. It's just him getting an income or her getting an income, and that's it. It'll take 17 years. Now, there's a lot of things that are factored in with our income because we have to maintain our existing lifestyle, which means we consume things. Mm-hmm. And that's another thing that we've been taught. We've been taught to consume. Mm-hmm. So if we start changing the way we think and realize that we've been programmed to think a certain way, we can get different results.
Absolutely. Now, I would agree with this because when you also think about like retirement accounts, you know, in that sense, we have been taught to save money, stash it away so that we can have it when we retire. But the idea is, going back to what Darius was talking about, it may take somebody 17 years to save up $1 million. But after 17 years has gone up, taxes, inflation, the whole financial situation is completely different. And that $1 million isn't $1 million after 17 years. Mm-hmm. So now you get to the age of retirement and you're wondering, what am I going to do, or how can I afford to retire? And it's because we've been taught principles that are outdated with regards to how we should maintain our financial lifestyle. So again, that's why we wanted to make sure we have this video for you so you can start to comprehend all of these points and reframe your mindset when it comes to how to properly save money, how to invest, and how to think differently with your money.
Right, because a lot of things, I think people think that you can save your way to success, but you can't just save money. You can't work and save money to get to become a millionaire. Mm-hmm. You have to put that money to work. It's money making money that allows you to be successful, not all the time the physical labor that you put in on an hourly basis.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because we're taught, right, that our...
At a W-2.
For example, we're taught that if we work X amount of hours, you know, time versus money, that we should receive a certain compensation. But if we reframe what we think about money, instead of us going out and doing the physical labor, we need to create systems where we can leverage our time into these systems, and the systems can do the work for us. That way, our work isn't dependent on us being able to show up. Mm-hmm. And that's the difference where you see business owners are really able to take advantage of, or millionaires, for example, because they're thinking about money differently. Not about what am I going to do to work. It's about what is my system going to do to create income. And that's where we have to, again, reframe and think about the different assets that we have available to us to extend our livelihood and be more strategic with how we go about generating income.
Right. Another thing, the second point that I want to make is the fact that we're programmed by consuming.
Yes.
We're programmed to consume based on the marketing, what we see on Instagram, all those things, the fancy ads that people, really smart people, put a lot of work and psychology into advertising to you. But what we need to really focus on, instead of consuming those products, we need to work on creating those products. We need to work on adding value versus always having someone or a business add value to us.
Mm-hmm. I hope people understand that. Like the idea of us adding value is another way you can think of about producing, right? We don't always think about how we can produce more income. As consumers, we tend to think about what can we take away, right? How much consumption can we stop doing, as opposed to thinking about increasing our income. So with the second point,
increasing our value.
Yeah. With this second point, we want you to start thinking about how can you add more value that will allow you to change your income thresholds so that you can just focus on the production piece of things, focus on generating cash flow, creating cash flow, so that the whole point of this game is to create cash flow. It's not not about consumption. It's about generating enough income so you have mailbox money. It just comes in. And that goes back to the first point that we were talking about, is with this outdated system, once you have this nest egg, right, you are no longer creating any more income. So the name of the game is about creating cash flow and what can you do to produce instead of consume.
Right. Now, that's a really good segue, because it's not just fancy marketers that's advertising to people. It's also the lifestyles that we see on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. We see people,
or even your loved ones. You know?
Yeah. And what we want to do is we want to keep up with those people. So we have no idea what those people did to get the clothes they have or the cars they have, but we put ourselves in maybe not the best financial situation to try to keep up with a look. And that's something that we need to change or adjust. We need to act our wage.
We need to act our wage. I like that. So the third point essentially is do not keep up with the Joneses. It is easy for us to always fall into, oh, well, my best friend has this, my mama has this, my brother has this, to always think about we need to have of equal value to what the next person has. But that is keeping us down. That's holding us back, because we have no idea what's happening in someone else's bank account. We don't know how they're generating income. And you never know that person could be on their last, few $100s, but they got them Gucci shades. They look good. And you go out and do the same thing, right? So you have to really understand, again, acting your wage. I like that, acting your wage, and being in tune with how much money do you actually have to spend, and also reevaluating the value that you place on things. Why does literally a logo on something make you value one thing over the other? And you really have to start focusing on this when we go back to production versus consumption, is understanding and comprehending again how much money you are spending, reevaluating what your own value is, because you may be really outside of your spending thresholds because you're just trying to keep up with the Joneses. Now, if you want to surround yourself with like-minded people who are all trying to reframe their programming, then definitely click on the link below. We would love for you to join the Wealth Nation community.
Right. Now, the fourth thing that I want to bring up is how our understanding of taxes changed once we started to understand more about business. Because from a tax standpoint, us personally, when we're working our 9 to 5, is we paid our taxes before we got paid.
Totally.
On the other end of things, when we had our business, we paid taxes after we paid all of our expenses. So the taxes got paid with what was left over. You see, there's a big difference. So once we started to understand taxes and how much opportunity we had when it came to a business, light bulbs started to go off. Because when you have an income working a 9 to 5 or a W-2, where you have an employee, that's a third of your income that goes to Uncle Sam first. And then you're left over, you're left with the other 67% to take care of your financial needs. On the other end, that's a big difference when, let's say you make $1 million and you spend $800,000 and only have to pay taxes on the $200,000. That's a big difference.
A huge difference. And that's why for us, like Darius was just saying, it was a mindset shift when we started to understand the value of having businesses and being able to take advantage of the tax breaks, because we were just getting hit over the head being W-2 employees with our taxes. And it wasn't until we started surrounding ourselves with like-minded people who had businesses, who were paying less in taxes than we were, and we just thought that this was crazy. So again, these are just tips that we're sharing with you so that you can start to reevaluate your value.
Right. Now, the fifth point that I would like to make is understanding how to leverage OPM. Because
that's a good one.
What you're able to do when you leverage OPM is you can keep your money out working, and then the money that you borrow or you leverage by using other people's debt, that also saves you on taxes, because you don't have to spend money on money. You don't have to pay taxes on money that you borrow.
Yeah. And OPM, other people's money, if you're not familiar with that term. So the idea with this is just understanding debt. Going back to consumption versus production. This is a perfect example, right? So a lot of times Americans go into debt for consumption. They're trying to consume, and then they owe a bunch of principal and interest back to the banks, which is then stunting their growth and their ability to create financial freedom, because they're on the hook. They're in debt to the banks, right? And they have to make their minimum payments. But if you look at debt from a different eye and be more strategic, where you borrow money to make money to produce, right? Not to consume. That's a different lens that we're looking at when it comes to debt. And you have to take note and follow the breadcrumbs by looking at the banks, looking at our U.S. government. They have a ton of debt that is being lent out. And what are they lending it out for? Is because they're getting all of that money back in principal and interest. They are producing money instead of consuming money. And when we started investing, especially in real estate, we were open to that, or we became more open to that concept and recognizing that if we get a loan, it's because we're trying to produce money. We're trying to invest money so that we can bring back more money and pay off that debt to create cash flow. So the idea is recognizing that you don't even need money in order to make money.
Right. And that really started to make more sense for me when we were having the experience we were having in real estate.
Yeah.
And we started borrowing money from our life insurance, the life insurance company, by leveraging our life insurance policy.
Yeah.
That really started to make sense for me, because you use other people's money to take all the risk, and then you get to keep the difference in between. So it's no different than what the banks do by being the middleman. They borrow our money and then lend our money out back to somebody else, or back to us, and we pay them interest. Meaning we take all the risks, and the banks get the benefit and the profit. That's how they get to have a benefit from a bailout when things hit the fan. So,
and they didn't have to come out of any money.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
They didn't use any of their money.
Exactly. And I really like what you said, to follow the breadcrumbs, because success leaves breadcrumbs, and the banks and financial institutions, life insurance companies, they leave breadcrumbs.
Yeah. Don't hate the player, hate the game, son. We're trying to teach you the game, son.
Point number 6 is a point that was made very clear to me by Warren Buffett, when he said that whenever the market is going up, you want to be getting out of the market. When the market is going down, you want to be getting into the market.
Yes.
When people are leaving, you want to run to it. When people are running to it, you want to run away. So it's all about your timing in which you invest, because when people are running away, there's people that's holding their dollars, and they don't get the benefit from that timing of getting into the market when it's down, because it has a huge upside.
Yeah.
When the market's already up, it can only go one way.
Yeah. And it's about understanding how to ride the wave, right? So if you are investing as everyone is you stay invested as everyone is pulling out of the market, that allows you to ride the wave when the market makes a turnaround. And people kind of forget that, or not even forget. I don't know if we're even taught that really, because it's just do what everybody's doing. If everyone's bailing out, you should probably bail out too.
Yeah, if everybody's panicking, you should panic too.
Yeah. And it's about having a different eye. I keep saying that, but just not being emotional with your money, because as you recognize that everyone is running for the hills, you should start thinking about things differently and trying to figure out how can you leverage the position that you have, as opposed to looking around and seeing what everybody is doing.
Right. Now, all these points that we made are a lot easier said than done. Totally. Because in the chaos is where you're supposed to find your organization or your calm. And that goes completely against everything that we've been taught basically our entire lives, especially when you think about traditional education. Because again, traditional education came from the idea that everybody's going to work in the factory, and that hadn't changed since my grandparents. So when it comes to how we manage our finances and how we're programmed to manage our finances, we have to start looking in other opportunities or directions. And a lot of the wealthy families that we've come in contact with, they teach this within their family.
Totally.
It's a part of their education, their family education, and not something taught in school. Yeah. So that's something that you're going to have to do for your family. That's something that you're going to have to teach your family about finances, and it starts with you.
Absolutely. And I would also add to this, with everything that we've been sharing today, going back to not following the Joneses, keeping up with the Joneses. If you want to truly be educated, then you can't continue to do the same thing that everyone else is doing. If you want a different financial outlook, then you have to do something different than what everyone else around you is doing, if they're doing what you don't want, right? So if everyone is sitting around watching Netflix and they're just making an okay salary, maybe you should think about reading a book or doing something different, right? Because in order to get what you want, you have to look at things differently. You have to start doing things differently. And when we started surrounding ourselves with people who had the lifestyle that we were attaining to have, we recognized that they weren't sitting around watching the news. They weren't sitting around watching, TV really really, because they were trying to fill their brains with useful information that is going to allow them to figure out how to produce more money. So they're reading books, they're networking, they're networking with other business owners. They're just out trying to make sure how they can continue to produce money. And when you think about everything that we are programmed to do, the name of the television shows that we watch, the news show in general, is called a program, right? So we are being programmed by programs that are out there just on our daily news, telling us and feeding us information that we
want, because we get to control the narrative.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. How do I frame that? that you ingest, right? You take that information and you do whatever you want with it. But at the end of the day, there's the same news feed being fed to all of us time and time again. And it's about what you decide to do with that information.
Right. Crap in is crap out.
Absolutely.
Right. The food we eat, everything that we consume, it comes out. It does something, then it comes out. So how will it come out? You can understand that by looking at the results that you have. What you've been consuming hasn't been working for you. So let's start consuming something different so you can get different results.
Absolutely. Now, Wealth Nation, if you want to continue to unprogram what you've been programmed to believe, then definitely click on our next video so you can understand how to create your own banking system.
Remember to own your own lifestyle.
Or someone else will.